Welcome to Tech Talk DC. I'm Dohan.
And I'm Win.
And we'll be talking about all things software engineering, architecture, and technical leadership.
We'll also be sure to keep you up with all the latest tech news relevant to you.
In this episode, we'll introduce the podcast and give you a little background.
After that, we'll talk about 2024 trends, which will be a very broad conversation, but know that in some future episodes, we'll also pick a topic and go deep.
All right. And afterwards, we'll wrap up the episode with a pick, like an open source project, show, book, or movie.
Great, yeah. Well, so before we get into all that, we can just introduce ourselves. I'm Win Van de Vanter. I've been a software developer for over 2 decades now. I've gotten a lot into the container and distributed computing space, Kubernetes, and all that fun, complex stuff, and also lots of Python and Java as far as coding.
All right, yeah. My name is Dohan, and I've been a software developer for almost 2 decades. And I have started my career with .NET, JavaScript. I've written several books on Angular, and I was a Google Developers Expert. Now I'm a technical fellow at Accela, leading innovation and strategic initiatives.
Very good, fancy. So I guess we should just talk a little bit about the origin of the podcast and the history, sort of.
So this is the first episode.
Wow, yeah.
I think we're deserving an applause for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Your fun new machine. Thank you, machine. So yeah, it all started with a blog, right? Why don't you just go ahead and give the background, since it was sort of started with you?
Yeah, it was back in 2012 or 2013. I believe I started techtalkdc.com as my personal blog, and then from there, it kind of grew. Collaborating with my coworkers on just posting tech stuff that we've been figuring out, because when you're in the thick of it, you spend so much time troubleshooting very specific things. So it's if you're going to write about that, that's the perfect time. Like at the end of that deep dive, to just take 20 minutes or 30 minutes and just write a blog post about it, so you can help someone not have to go through that deep dive.
Yeah, it is great when you think about how some people just are able to churn out blogs so much. I think a lot of it is just working it into your routine like that. It's helping you and helping a lot of other people.
It's definitely not a natural thing. Like you gotta, it's like working out. Like you gotta force yourself to do it. But it's always easier to do it when it's fresh in your mind.
Yeah. So that's a good tip already. And so, yeah, then we formed a group, right?
Yeah, because so we were attending all these meetups in the DC area, and we noticed a bit of a pattern where all the meetups were very technology specific. So there's a .NET group or a Node.js group or a Python group, and we wanted to be able to create a space where if you attended the Tech Talk DC meetup, month after month, that you would hear from different voices and different tech stacks and be exposed to different ideas and different things.
It certainly is nice to mingle with people working on different stacks. You can learn a lot, and it's just interesting. So that went on for quite some time.
From 2015, almost February 2015 to February 2020. I don't think we missed a single month, and there were quite a few amount of people that helped make that happen for us. So it wasn't we might have kind of started it, but a lot of people carried that torch.
Sure. And as many things were ruffled by COVID, I don't really think it's been so active since then. But the need for community is never stronger. So we think first with this podcast, we want to start rejuvenating that Tech Talk DC community again.
Absolutely, yeah. And in-person events have been a bit of a challenge. I think a lot of people recalibrated their priorities around their families a bit more, and also the tolerance for kind of going out there, getting in the traffic, all of that has been kind of, people have a lower tolerance to that, and at the same time, people also want to connect, want to be together. So, trying to find a balance between in-person and online events, I think is critical.
Right. So we're starting with not in person and not even interactive, but hopefully we'll be supplementing the Tech Talk DC community again.
And, one of the reasons is, we are doing this first episode today, just the two of us, but the intention is to definitely include more voices, guests in the future. And one of the, catalysts that propelled us to want to do this is just when we sit down and just talk about technology, we end up covering lots of like fertile ground. We end up talking about lots of interesting things, and we also have a unique perspective being in DC, being so close to the federal government or federal IT. I think the way we approach technology is a little bit different than like Silicon Valley or elsewhere.
Well, stereotypically in a 5-10 years behind kind of way. So we'll try not to get too deep into the federal bureaucracy aspects of it. But the side of the country, is where we're coming from. But generally, we'll be talking about any sort of relevant topic. If it has to do with DC, so be it. But no politics.
Absolutely no politics. Yep, that's a great one.
So yeah, well, we'll get into the sort of the main topic of the podcast today now. And if you have any, we're going to be looking for a lot of feedback on the podcast. We're going to be having a lot of iterations and improvements to do. So please do share your thoughts and feedback with us as much as you can.
We'll stream this on YouTube, so feel free to leave comments there. We'll also try to set up something on techtalkdc.com to share information and receive your thoughts. But then there's also the DC Tech Slack group that you can join. That's at dctech.chat. And once you join that Slack group, you can find the Tech Talk DC channel. It's been there forever, and we'll try and monitor that space as well.
And we'll throw our contact info at the end, so feel free to reach out directly too. And with that, let's get into the main topic, and that's 2024 trends. We're already here in February, but we can already see that LLMs and AI are going to continue to be the probably hottest thing in tech for some time.
Absolutely. It's been insane. It's relentless.
Yeah. And we're really seeing, that kind of move from wow and use within the ChatGPT website to inside of businesses and seeing what they're starting to do with it, with pumping their own data in, worrying about the implications of sharing that data with OpenAI, for example, running their own systems, their own models internally, and just starting to see a nonstop barrage of apps that people are making, leveraging this kind of generative AI.
Yeah.
We just saw Soma drop. Now you can type text and
get a video, get a movie out of it.
So that's exciting. That's wowing a lot of people. I guess you can't use it yet. They just previewed it.
Yeah. Unless you tweet at Sam Altman with a request, and he'll do it for you. At least that's what he did the other day.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well,
probably just a promotional thing.
Oh, right. Well, if you know Sam, just hit him up.
Yeah.
Have him make you a video.
Request.
That's probably what he's doing with his day.
Yeah.
He's not doing anything important. So
looking for $7 trillion for AI chip investments.
He has got some work to do to get that.
So yeah, and then on the other hand, you see a lot of companies kind of just almost, I'm going to call it recklessly, take an OpenAI chatbot and throw it on their websites
as fast as possible.
Yeah, so there have been small businesses like car dealers doing this, but then I guess also Air Canada did it.
That's not the way to go. That doesn't make it look very useful. But and then you can ask it things like, what recipe should I make tonight, or something totally unrelated.
Exactly.
But there are good uses of it. But obviously there's like a gold rush now. Everybody's trying to get it out as fast as possible to
Yeah.
It's such a change.
So it's on us technologists, of course. You know, in the gold rush, you know, there's always the desire to be the person, you know, selling the pickaxe, you know, and making money. But I think, and that's, you know, that's part of our perhaps unique view here. We want responsible engineering to happen.
Yeah. So I guess what you want to talk about some of the pitfalls that you might be running into with all this rush to get on this AI trend. You know, you don't want to just share your private data by training.
Well,
you know,
a lot of people don't realize most of the online models, they take your data and it becomes a part of the model.
Yeah, OpenAI does say, you know, if you use their new sort of custom GPTs and assistance API, they will not do that. But nevertheless, even if they don't.
But also they had a security snafu where all of a sudden someone else's chat history appeared in someone else's window. So
yeah, so there's going to be, with very sensitive data, very valuable data, even if they say that they're going to have all the protections in the world, they could make mistakes. There could be security breaches. So a lot of companies will just not be doing that. They'll be running their own models. Yeah. They'll be doing it. So they'll need it internally. And so the rush for AI talent and AI tooling to run in businesses is huge. That's where the gold rush is. Very valid. So, very interesting.
And this is why like federal IT is interesting, right? Because there's a different security mindset there. And this is true for large enterprises as well. It's just in the case of the federal government, of course, everything is publicly available information. You know, one of the standards is the FISMA standard. That's the Federal Information Security and Management Act. And, you know, the systems will be rated, you know, moderate or high impact. And to be able to use cloud services, the particular cloud service has to be FedRAMPed. And that means the cloud provider has to, you know, all the way from, you know, having padlocks on the server cages, you know, all the way up the software chain, they have to adhere to certain security practices and standards. So in the Gen AI space, Azure OpenAI Services is actually FedRAMP moderate approved and soon high as well. So that's one example where you can safely leverage LLMs within your business by leveraging Azure OpenAI services.
Oh, right, because they're so they're it's still being stored on Azure's infrastructure, but it's probably, you know, the government probably knows where, for example, and it's not mixed with other servers from other organizations.
Yeah,
so that's interesting.
I mean, yeah, in the case of the federal government, there's like a separate cloud instance called GovCloud. That's like separate buildings and things like that. And of course, for the, you know, the consumer space, there are the regions, the East, West, etc. regions. But we are also familiar with the cloud provider model of, you know, the virtual private clouds that section off, you know, your services and your data from other data, and that has matured quite a bit over the years.
Yeah. So, you know, one interesting trend that's been happening lately is a company called Supermicro. Their stock has just exploded like 3 times as fast as NVIDIA, and they make servers pre-made to run AI models that you can just plug into your business and start using right away. So I think we're going to see a lot more things like that. I'm curious of the expertise that companies are going to need to bring in or train in order to run these models, or if software engineers are going to be able to kind of tool up, you know, in these months coming.
Well, so that's why the Gen AI wave has been such big news. It's because you don't need necessarily to have that data science or, you know, AI, you know, engineering expertise to be able to run these models, right? You know, you can just throw them behind an API and you can give it instructions. And
you might need to fine tune. You might need to run multiple models.
Right. Sure. But that's to make your solutions more effective, efficient, and all that stuff.
Right. But you can get started and do a lot with very little. It's amazing.
Exactly. And that, I think that's why that is such a huge opportunity for, you know, all technologists out there.
Yeah.
And that's also why it's been what now since November 2022. It's been in the news cycle consistently,
and it's not going anywhere because it actually is really useful. I think one of the first use cases was writing poems, but that quickly evolved to actually using it to code, and it does a really good job coding.
Yeah.
And GitHub's Copilot, powered by Microsoft, powered by OpenAI, is a great example of a system where they've kind of made it really good by building in lots of different models to initially handle your prompt, and then scan your workspace, what other files you have open and things like that, all the way to like issues you have in your Git repo, like all can be taken into account in your context when you ask it questions. And so that's really neat. So that that's changed coding,
and also it's been pretty disruptive in the creative space.
Yeah, it's right. We're seeing writers and actors strike over AI. Because they're that worried about it. Because it's
and
really...
like Steam, for example, disallowed any game that included any AI generated images in it or content. And then now there's also concern with this new tool. What was it? Sora. Yeah. Just straight up generating high production quality videos.
Right. It's going to be very interesting legal fights around all that. I mean, and there's been news about the New York Times suing OpenAI for billions of dollars over, just crawling all their content and training their model on it. Well, Reddit has just agreed to pay to take $60 million from them to get access to the Reddit content per year, I believe. So that's probably the first of many deals we'll see like that.
Nothing is free. So that's interesting to see, because we've seen that first with Facebook. Just selling your data all over the place. The data Analytica scandal?
Cambridge Analytica.
Mm-hmm. And in Europe, actually, they started offering a paid service, Facebook.
So you could pay, so they don't take your data. Yeah. I wish they would do that here.
But that's actually why I like more of Apple's products, because at least it's as expensive as their services and products are, at least it feels like an honest relationship.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to see a lot more about what OpenAI should be able to do with the data it scrapes. But certainly it seems like they got a lot for very little. It's going to be interesting how the price goes too. I mean, if they're going to have to pay all these deals, what's the cost going to be? It's already costing them almost $1 million a day just to run ChatGPT. And
there's no way. I mean, including even Copilot.
Copilot is losing $20 for every $10 subscription. Right
now. There's no way it's making any money, and they just have to set a reasonable price to get people in the door.
Microsoft had said it was going to be $50 for the Copilot for Office, so it'll be really interesting.
Because I think that's a bit different, because like it has to scan your entire workspace. Like it has to consider, the AI model has to consider the entire workspace. Like you need to vectorize that information, and there's more setup needed behind that. Whereas Copilot, or the GitHub Copilot, is more like it'll consider your open tabs and things like that. So the context window, I think, is the big deal here.
Well, I just think there's more uses. The $50 is covering PowerPoint, Word, writing your emails. Like, if you can just, hey, write this email for me, be sure to include this point, and this point, and address these three folks and the HR department or something, and it just does it. Or write me a PowerPoint with these, like paste in your table of contents. The next thing you know, you have 40 slides styled with your company's logo. That just saved you a lot of time and makes everything look better too.
Yeah. So this past fall, I've been working on my new book, and I've been using Claude and ChatGPT Pro, or whatever its name is, for analyzing certain things and summarizing certain information.
It's GPT-4.
And for me, that context window has been a very useful tool. Being able to attach multiple documents and asking a question across those documents has been great. And Claude Pro has like a 200,000 token context or so, or is it 400,000? So it's
remind us what Claude is.
Claude is it's CLAUDE.ai, Claude.ai. The company is Anthropic, so it was started by people.
Oh, is it for images, creating images?
No. It's kind of like
it's just another
text-based chat agent, but it's in terms of written, like creating summaries and things like that, it's much better than ChatGPT.
Okay, specializes in summaries.
More like text that makes sense.
Oh,
because whenever I draft something in ChatGPT, I find it's basically useless to me. The output, like I can't use the output. Like I have to significantly change it. Whereas Claude is generates more acceptable output that requires less changes.
Oh, so you don't change it.
Yeah. And then there's also Mistral. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah. So isn't that an open source?
Yeah. Well, it's like they leaked it or something, and then it's not clear what it is, but it's a European company. And the other day I used their 8x7 model. 8x I don't know what the 8 stands for, but the by 7 is the 7 billion parameters. And I was really impressed with it. And that's the thing. Like these tools are assistants, right? They replace tasks. When it's a Friday afternoon and you're out of steam, you can go ahead and generate a 2-page draft of a document.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been a fan of like saying the wrong thing or writing or creating the wrong document or whatever to get you started, because the moment you present something people can react to or even yourself, that's a great catalyst for productivity.
Yeah. For me, it's mostly for coding or asking it questions that then I can follow up on and learn about. For it generating documents and things, I just haven't explored it as much for that. But it's amazing what it can do. It reminds me of the lawyer who did it to create a legal briefing, and it passed as a legal briefing. Of course, it made up cases to cite, so you got, I think, in deep trouble, if not debarred. But it just shows you the potential, and that reminds me of how it passed the bar exam too. So it is quite an amazing assistant, and it's just going to continue to change work in every facet.
Absolutely, and so it's kind of like the new calculator, right?
That can be applied to basically everything.
Exactly, but there's this concept of final good assembler. So that means you own the person owns whatever the output is. Like that means you've reviewed it, updated it, or checked it for accuracy and things like that. But at the end of it, if you're taking something from an AI model and then passing it on as your own, at that point you own it. You become responsible for it because you can't. It can't be like, the GPS led me into the lake situation.
Yeah,
right?
It's become a big deal with coding because people can just copy and paste that code and try to run it, and it might work, but it might not be exactly what needs to be done.
And so many people are concerned about, especially non-technical people are concerned about that. And then I like to remind people, hey, for the past 20 or so years, we've been very effective at copying and pasting code that we've Googled.
Well, but that's not always great either, and people have run into problems.
That's my point. That's my point.
So now it's just going to get worse.
Not necessarily, right? Well, if you have the pipeline, the quality pipeline, like a good CI/CD pipeline
Sure.
that validates the code, including reviews and automated tests.
Well, then you have the AI write the automated tests.
Well, sure. I mean, adversarial AI, right? You can have AI generating code. You can have AI writing tests, and they can fight it out.
At least for now, it's still going to be important to read the code and make sure it's right as much as you can.
That's my point. No, every time.
Yeah,
it's not as much as you can. Like,
well,
own it.
It's easy to see though how good it is at coding, how we might eventually go up an abstraction, and coding the way we code now is really not going to be a thing.
But that's the Star Trek what the deck simulator, or oh my god,
I don't know. I'm not a Trekkie, this is giving you a glimpse of that kind of possibility.
It's basically saying, like, computer, do this for me.
And it can generate the code to do it, and it basically, oftentimes works. It's getting better by the week. I really like how now, right, you can do a little @workspace in your Copilot chat, which I recommend the chat more than anything else in Copilot. Then that will get it to look at, they'll force it to look at your entire workspace with everything open. You can then ask it, what changes do I need to make across what files for this new feature or something like that. It's really really nice.
What about the morality of all this? A lot of people are also concerned about the morality.
It being trained on other people's code.
That's one. Also, is it right to be using these tools?
What do you mean? Why wouldn't that be moral? There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing immoral about using the tools if the tools aren't like using stolen IP or something.
Right.
Problems might arise. Like, we might all become terrible coders and find ourselves, in not being able to understand anything anymore without AI.
Yeah.
So that could be troublesome. But I don't know. I think we're going that direction to using AI full force. So we're just going to have to.
Yeah, I mean, how many coders today know assembly, right?
Right. So we're just going to have to create AI to understand the AI, and just to make sure we keep control over it.
Yeah, that's going to be a toughie.
Yeah, all the regulations and the worry about what AI can do, they're real, and it's scary, but there's no turning it off. And
I don't think it can be stopped.
No, and but at least it's very exciting too. The forces for good it can do are incredible as well. Yeah. So it's just going to intensify.
Also, of course, there's concerns about perpetuating biases and things like that.
True. Yeah.
That are present in the data set, because ultimately these models are statistical models that it's just guessing what the next word is, based on probability. Mm-hmm. It's just a extremely complicated and fancy way of doing that. Mm-hmm. And of course, that probability is going to be based on whatever data it was trained with. So it can pick up on, it can reinforce existing bias. It can also, from a cybersecurity perspective, you can poison the model, right? You can feed it some nefarious input, and coerce it to generate intentionally bad output.
I said no politics, but we're here in DC, and what AI might be used for in the coming U.S. election is frightening. Yeah. The fake video, maybe fake deep fakes, just tweeting, like propaganda at such a high scale now.
Well, there was this Hong Kong company where the finance employee was tricked by deep fakes into transferring some millions of dollars to another account. I guess somebody cloned the voice of the CFO, and I'm not sure if there was a video element included in here or not, but like this individual was convinced that they were talking to the CFO, and they moved lots of money around.
Yeah, we're going to have a world where we're going to have great ways to check the validity of what we hear, what we see.
We'll just have to all establish code words.
Yeah.
What's going to be your code word?
Well, I can't tell you.
And not on a broadcast. Yeah, you're right.
It's going to have to be like a private key, we all use to transfer data and be able to validate it, like public key encryption.
Yeah, like your PGP key. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
You want to keep that to yourself.
There's just so much we could talk about in AI. So many gadgets, so many apps coming out.
Apple Vision Pro dropped. To sensational reactions.
That's not AI.
Well, but it is. When you imagine a future of combining such convincing virtual reality with artificial intelligence, like especially with this, Sora tool is so mind blowing. It's such high fidelity. Then. It's one thing to watch a Hollywood blockbuster on a VR headset, as if you're in the movie theater, in a 100-foot screen in front of you. And it's another thing to be just completely fed something like fabricated, on the fly.
Yeah. It's going to be a while though before this really makes a splash. I think this is their first foray, and they expect kind of to gradually get into the market, get people's palates wet with this. But obviously at that price point, most people aren't going to buy it. And I've heard there's been a number of returns now of people not really satisfied with it for what they've paid. So obviously you can do a lot augmenting what we see and intermersing our digital systems with our world, regular world. But yeah, I don't think this Vision Pro is very, very exciting at the moment, frankly. But
I tried it at the store, and I own a Quest 2, and that's a fun little device. You definitely get that feeling of presence, even with low quality graphics. And the striking thing to me with the Apple Vision Pro was just the fidelity is insane. Like these pictures that were taken in the spatial mode or something, it felt like, because I was looking at some random family pictures, it felt like I was intruding into someone's space.
Yeah.
Like it felt weird.
It is quite amazing what virtual reality can do. How immersed you can feel, how realistic it can seem. Yeah. So it's going to be an interesting future with that. I just don't know how fast these things have been so slow to take off. But with Apple getting in the game, they're brilliant at getting things to catch on. So
that is true.
Well, I'll be very curious to see what their next generation one is going to look like and what apps people are going to make for it. And killer use cases, because for me, I don't have a killer use case for it. I'm sure the entertainment is amazing on it. Gaming would be cool.
Well, have you tried Job Simulator?
Job Simulator. Well, I work enough as it is. I need to go and simulate more.
My daughter loves Job Simulator, and
it's a game. I played that on Oculus.
Yeah, but they just announced a version for Apple Vision Pro, so
Well, let me get my 3500
exactly. Yeah,
transferred over
to pretend work.
Yeah, they sold out yet? I'm going to get mine tomorrow.
All right.
So yeah, I guess, other things that are hot in tech these days, there's a little bit of chatter about people moving away from the cloud. The costs have kind of gotten out of control there, but I don't think that there's actually movement in any significant numbers. There was DHH kind of famously went on and on about how complex the cloud actually has become and how it can be simpler and cheaper to move back to a data warehouse.
Who is DHH?
The creator of Ruby on Rails.
Oh, okay.
I forget something. I can't remember his name, what it stands for, but he's known as DHH.
Oh, okay. Dustin.
No.
Howard.
No.
Let's not guess.
David something.
Okay.
Yeah,
David.
let's not guess.
Okay.
So that's kind of an interesting topic, just to kind of. I like hearing about the gripes people have with the cloud because it can be improved, and we're not at an endpoint now. Things are going to still evolve a lot. So cloud skills are still very relevant, but I think they're going to shift.
But so the thing we're concerned about with AI models like being effective and efficient, I don't think people have been very effective and efficient leveraging the cloud much. I think there's been a lot of waste.
Sure. Oh, it's crazy. Famous waste of just like something like 28% of cloud spend is just idle resources.
Right.
People like forget about or don't utilize correctly. So it's insane. And of course, the cloud providers aren't rushing out to help people clean those up.
Hey, you're paying us too much money.
Right. And that said no company, capitalistic country ever.
Yeah. So, but like from the get-go, for me, my focus has been on minimalism with the cloud. Like this kind of started with containerization. So I've been very into the Alpine base images, which is which helps you create these 17 megabyte or 20 megabyte server size images. When you look at the equivalent Ubuntu or Red Hat images, they're like 600-800 gigabytes.
You also get a much smaller security surface too, with something like an Alpine small image like that. I've actually been looking into a company called ChainGuard lately. They make images that are extremely efficient and locked down.
Oh, nice.
So yeah. I mean, you have your container level, and there are, I guess, a number of ways to manage cloud. They're better and better tooling.
And actually, if you're looking for high security images, the DoD has a public site called Iron Bank, where you can find hardened images, like literally military grade security.
That's nice of them to provide that.
Yeah.
You heard it here, Tech Talk DC.
Yeah, Iron Bank.
Iron Bank. Sounds cool.
Go check it out.
It's cool. Did the Air Force come up with that name? It sounds like a cool.
I'm not sure, but
cool name.
But yeah, what the F-16 runs Kubernetes.
Oh yeah. Well, in some regard, right? I've heard about that.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's like certain parts of it. I'm sure the whole thing isn't like on Kubernetes, but
yeah. But yeah, of course, and also with these things, like Kubernetes has been overused.
Yeah,
Kubernetes. Way too much.
That's another hot topic, really. I mean, at least in the DevOps space, Kubernetes in cloud, Kubernetes is often being described as overkill. At the same time, it seems like the community is trying to make it a standard. It is nice to have a standard. Everybody may not think it's the easiest or best standard, but it is one that a huge, ecosystem of tooling and processes has formed around. So that's one benefit. But yeah, it's interesting to see, where that will go, because at the same time, you also have distributions of Kubernetes that are getting really shrunk down. So you can run a very lightweight version of Kubernetes, like micro K8s or K3s. And I've been wanting to experiment doing it on just one server, and that deploying my app that way. Yeah. Because then I don't need 3 nodes for every app.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
The cost of that.
I have a $5 a month DigitalOcean instance where I've been running a Docker instance with 8 containers that host like 6 websites, and the other 2 containers one is a Let's Encrypt one, and the other is a reverse proxy. So it's all SSL enabled and all that stuff.
I guess that's valid, just running Docker and hosting your apps that way.
I mean, it's not the best, but
but it can do the job of simple. When you have a simple app,
for the longest time, the next step up was like 3 server cluster.
Right.
All right. I mean, why should I, triple my budget here?
Yeah, everybody wants to use containers now to deploy. It doesn't mean they want to use clusters. Still, what would happen to the single server?
Right. I mean, so it all comes down to like complexity or unnecessary complexity and bloat. And the same thing has been going on with front end frameworks, right? I've been writing about Angular. Last year I was really concerned that we were kind of like in the like the late stage of SPA frameworks. All of these frameworks have gotten so complicated, and people can't even think about using HTML, JavaScript, CSS without, saying the words React, which is not even HTML, CSS, or, okay, it's semi JavaScript. But
I just wrote a React app recently, actually, and I noticed there were 1,600 dependencies.
That's insane.
Why?
That's insane.
Do I need insane. That many?
Yeah. So I was, I was really happy, and I don't want to go into this tangent, and we won't. But I was really happy that at least Angular is taking steps to simplify their framework. And I think Vue has done a great job doing that, and we're also seeing new frameworks that are just simpler and more performant.
Yeah,
QuickJS is one.
When do you consider like a new framework? That's been a tough thing for me in work now. We use React a lot, but we've been looking at some simpler frameworks, or some frameworks that have just been written from scratch. Because sometimes you wonder if some of these older frameworks like React and Angular it's just difficult, to like bolt on new functionalities.
So at scale, they all break. They all break. Mm-hmm. You push it enough years, enough scale.
Sometimes you just need to rewrite it.
Right. Yeah. Because the thing is, very few people in the world understand the architecture behind these frameworks and libraries. And usually when you find yourself, when you've pushed it for so many years, and you start running into performance issues, like literal, frame rendering issues, then you're screwed at that point. Then you have to like bring in, the world's top experts to dig you out of that hole. And sometimes just rewriting isn't an option. But one thing I like what Angular is doing. So I mean, I've always liked Angular because it has kept always one foot in like the true like native HTML CSS space, just instead of the React completely abandoning HTML altogether, and now they're introducing some new concepts like signals. We're not going to get into it today, but to basically some new fundamental concepts that just allows you to build complicated systems without it breaking, as you pile more and more complexity on it.
Okay.
So I mean, to me, that's the key. That's the job of the framework. Like as the consumer of the framework, I shouldn't have to know the internals of the framework. Mm-hmm. I should just use it, and it should just work, right?
Yeah. Hopefully. That's often not the reality, though, and not just front end.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And that's actually been a
and that's why I'm saying, like, I'm seeing a trend of this, like an overall trend of complexity and bloat.
We have sort of hit, and it goes back to the cloud too. I mean, that's probably where DHH was coming from. One thing I've heard a number of cloud engineers or DevOps practitioners say is that it's been hard to understand what's under the covers in the cloud. And then when you don't understand enough of what's going on under the covers, you don't necessarily build it in the best way, or you can't necessarily troubleshoot it properly when you need to, when you get into, or when you scale large enough, you can't figure out how to do that properly.
That's why I love serverless.
Well, serverless has its own issues, but maybe that's complex too to manage. Just keep track of everything. However, ultimately, that's what we want, right? We don't want to have to worry about any server or anything else. We just worry about what our application does, make it work, and have it run. So we'll always be moving closer to that.
DC, where we expect things to just work.
Oh yeah, right. Everybody just expects like the efficient swamp here.
Yeah. We don't want to write new frameworks just to make our current framework work. Just want to pick one and then go home.
Yeah, true.
Do things.
Right.
And record a podcast.
Right. We like to produce things, not struggle with things. So,
very true.
And I don't want to learn a new framework at the same time, like every year. So,
I have a 2 to 3 year cycle where if I'm picking something, I'll commit to that for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Like without changing it. And then, because then at the end of the 3 years, then there is enough of a change that has occurred to to make it worthwhile your time, your learning time.
So it's at least important to look at what else is being created.
Sure,
look
yeah.
at what new things are
I
coming
read
in.
Hacker News, right? News.ycombinator.com every day. That's always
nice plug.
New stuff that's coming up. So yeah, if you don't know about it, definitely go check it out. Hacker News.
Hacker News, one of our favorites, of course. Yeah, well, I guess that kind of leads us into our sort of next section, where we were just going to talk about maybe something that we're a tip that we each of us have,
or pick of the week,
or a pick that we have of something,
or cover any sponsors we might have in the future.
Yeah, so we'll do things like that this week. I guess we just both have a pick.
Yeah.
So why don't you go first, Johan?
Okay, sure. I'll go. I'll reach back here. Pardon my reach. I have my new book.
Very nice.
Angular for Enterprise Applications. The third edition.
I like the title.
It's been completely reworked, and it has lots of non-Angular content.
Like what?
Like guidance on how to be a better architect, how to be a better tech lead for your team, more like software development fundamentals, like your some of your object-oriented programming concepts, or like TypeScript basics, because when you miss some of these basics, then it's tough to build up on them. So that's why I have a more of a flow in the book that really makes sure that you understand the basics, because then using those fundamental blocks, then you can build anything out of those.
Yeah, you want to bring everything together and make sure you fill in any gaps with knowledge, especially when you're building for enterprises and things get complicated.
If you wanna check out the book, you can go to angularforenterprise.com.
Very nice. Looks great, Johan. Good job.
Thank you.
And I guess my pick will be our company, Ops Canvas, just released the first version of our product, where you can draw a software diagram representing your software, and give us your images, and from that we'll generate infrastructure for you and deploy in pipelines to deploy that software. So it's a way to sort of generate pipelines and infrastructure as code, and have it all done for you. So robust systems. It's not like
encapsulating those best practices, right?
Yeah, like if you write your own infrastructure as code, you have to be sure to configure it correctly, secure it, and it's a lot of work. So it saves that time and gets you there properly. And also, you can always eject from it, so to speak. Like, it generates your IIC, your infrastructure as code, that you can take and use yourself. It's not going to be gobbledygook generated code. So one of our big tenets is to kind of produce things in the way you would build them anyway. So smart automation. So check us out, opscanvas.com. And we're working on, of course, an AI aspect of it. Where it can do observability leveraging LLMs. So we're really excited to be able to offer that soon as part of the offering.
Very cool. Yeah, I saw a demo. It's definitely, I recommend people checking it out.
Thank you.
So what's the URL again?
That's opscanvas.com.
All right.
So yeah, please check it out. Feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any questions.
How can people reach you?
Well, let's flash up that. Oh, you got it up on the screen. Great. Yeah. You can direct DM me on X or Twitter. And I guess I'm happy to get emails too, but I'm not going to spell that out right now, because that's a little bit much.
Yeah. And you can reach me out at DULUCA on X. I'm also on Threads, Mastodon,
all of them. Blue Sky.
Blue Sky. Yeah. What was the other? Instagram. I do use that for more like personal life.
TikTok.
Thing. I'm not on TikTok.
Yeah, me either. Yeah, I deleted mine.
So that's the unique DC thing, because like we're told, China is, sorry, no politics. Security issues. So that's why I don't have the TikTok app installed.
Yeah. I don't want any more of it. I have enough. Instagram Reels is enough fun videos for me.
Yeah, and YouTube Shorts as well. So yeah.
Well, great. I mean, I think maybe next time, we haven't come down with the final topic, but we've talked about a few topics. Yay. And that would be
yay, first podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was gonna kind of give a hint at what the next podcast might be. But Johan wants to play with the toys that he just got for this podcast. But yeah, we were talking about more on cloud deployments. I'm sure we'll have more about AI to talk about. So, and eventually we'll have our own first guest, which
we want to dig into the technical stuff, right? Yeah. We want to talk about RAG powered apps, retrieval augmented generation.
Yeah. And there's some really cool stuff in the networking space, the cloud space, network as a service. There's platform engineering. There's cloud spending supercharged by AI. So we've got a list, and we'll be getting deep and bringing it to you.
Yep. And we have cut our teeth, building systems and solutions, so we can dig into any part of the tech stack and have conversations. So let us know in the comments wherever you're watching this.
Yeah, really looking forward to any feedback you might have. Would be much appreciated.
Absolutely. Well, I will trigger our exit music here.
All right. Well,
thank you so much.
It's been
by the way, this music was composed and recorded by Win.
Oh,
so thank you so much.
I'm so glad it made its way to a podcast soundtrack. Well, until next time, thanks for tuning in.